This page is the front cover of Total 64 magazine, featuring Duke Nukem 0 Hour as the main highlight. The cover also teases a massive 6-page Zelda special and a free Turok 2 poster. Other games mentioned include Tomorrow Never Dies, Superman, Banjo-Tooie, All-Star Tennis, 99, Gauntlet Legends, Mystical Ninja 2, Virtual Pool 64, and Top Gear Overdrive. There are also reviews, previews, and 64mations of games like Turok 2, Seeds of Evil, Vrally, Starshot, Micro Machines 64, Duke Nukem, Rayman 2, Wipeout 64, Silicon Valley, NHL 99, Gex 64, and Zelda Ocarina of Time. The next page is a full-page advertisement for WCW/NWO Revenge on the Nintendo 64. It boasts high review scores, including 94% from Total 64 magazine, accompanied by their Top Banana Award. Other accolades include 90% from Official Nintendo magazine and 87% from 64 magazine. The ad highlights the game as the best beat-em-up on the N64 and out now, encourages readers to purchase the game. This page is a full-page advertisement for WCW/NWO Revenge on the Nintendo 64. It touts high review scores and the Top Banana Award from Total 64 magazine. It states, "Best beat 'em up on the N64," and declares it is out now. The next page is the contents page for Total 64 magazine. The main feature is Duke Nukem 0 Hour, promising a look at his latest hog-murdering skills. There is a section called 64mations, which has Rayman 2, with the reviewer asking, "Anyone up for a bit of slap and tickle?" as well as mentioning that it's coming to the N64 next year. The previews section features Micro Machines, describing it as micro motor mayhem and pant-wetting laughter. Lastly, the feature section is dedicated to Zelda, promising to reveal everything you want to know about the upcoming release of Ocarina of Time. This page is the contents page, and has a few reviews including Turok 2, where the reviewer jokes about Christmas being a great time to slay prehistoric beasts. There's Body Harvest, where Adam Drake is trying to save the world, but the reviewer wonders if he can save his game from scrutiny. Wipeout 64 and Silicon Valley are also mentioned, plus Vrally. Infogrames Starshot involves a mischievous juggler and a custard pie contest, and S.C.ARS promises outrageous vehicles and a good waxing. NHL 99 aims to be the market leader in ice hockey games. Finally, there's the rest section, listing various regular segments, including news, reviews, intro, Total Recall, Cheaty Monkey, The Firing Line, picks, win prizes, high scores, subscriptions, back issues, next month, and sign off. The editorial discusses finally getting a finished version of Turok 2, and the choice to review finished games, rather than preview carts. The next page is a news section titled, Missing Link, discussing Zelda, Ocarina of Time's release date being potentially delayed into '98, and Nintendo possibly holding it back to avoid market saturation during Christmas, favoring new N64 owners picking up GoldenEye and Mario bundles. There's also concern about software sales in Japan, with the N64 performing poorly compared to the Saturn and PlayStation, which accounts for 70% of all software sales. A section called, Get 'em While They're Hot, warns gamers to pre-order Turok 2 due to anticipated high demand. The page includes artwork of Zelda and Link, plus screenshots from Turok 2. This page dives into the N64's holiday bundles, highlighting a £99.99 deal that gets you a console, controller, and either GoldenEye or Super Mario 64. The reviewer humorously suggests Sony might be feeling a little insecure. Also, it's mentioned some retailers are swapping out those games for Banjo-Kazooie in the bundle. A snippet titled, Will Bond Return, speculates about MGM Interactive possibly porting their PlayStation Bond game to the N64. The reviewer then cheekily calls the upcoming Tomorrow Never Dies game a lame effort, but says they will have to wait and see. Lastly, there is a discussion about Rare delaying Banjo-Tooie to ensure the game is superb, and mentioning that with Perfect Dark, 12 Tales, Conker's Quest, Jet Force Gemini and Donkey Kong 64 on the way, Banjo and his friends might not even appear until 2000. The next page kicks off with Deuced Up, All-Star Tennis 99, Ubisoft's attempt to ace the N64 tennis scene. It boasts courts from around the world, and tennis stars like Richard Krajicek and Michael Cheng. Then, things get Transylvanian with Castlevania. Konami's latest 64-bit adventure ditches Cola and Cornell, focusing on Schneider Belmont and Carrie Easterfield. Depending on who you pick, you'll be fighting Death and Dracula and become a vampire. The page wraps up with 64-bits news snippets. WWF. Attitude is coming from the makers of Warzone. There is mention of Acclaim abandoning a Magic: The Gathering game, and Nintendo snagging the Star Wars Phantom Menace game rights, and it will use a 4 meg expansion pack. This page is a full-page advert for Rally 99 on Nintendo 64. 12 official WRC 1998 rally cars battle it out against time and each other on 48 grueling tracks spread across 8 countries. You can't trust the weather, with erratic conditions and punishing nighttime stages, and you can't beat it. The next page features 3 game previews. First up is Gauntlet Legends, described as a revamp of the arcade classic, with lush 3D environments. Looks like they've swapped out the elf for an archer. Next is Virtual Pool 64. Interplay looks set to bring pool halls to the N64. It promises multiple game types, and a smug git to play against and beat, or vice versa. Finally, Superman, the animated series is covered, featuring Final Fight-style beat-em-ups, flying sections, and a 4-player deathmatch mode. Players battle Lex Luthor and other enemies from the animated series. Also mentioned is Nightmare Creatures, SCARS, Star Wars, Rogue Squadron, FIFA 99, Charlie Blast's Territory, Buster Move 3, South Park, and Chameleon Twist 2, as well as Starshot, are listed under US releases for December 1998. Also mentioned are Starshot, Death Cars, Nuclear Strike, Nomenquest, F-18 Super Hornet, 10808 Snowboarding 2, Perfect Dark, Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, Quest for Camelot 64, Duck Dodgers in the Third One Half, Dementia 64 Wars, Mystical Ninja Staring Geomon 2, Lego Racers, Donkey Kong Country 64, Legend of the River King, Spooky Banjo-Tooie, Earthbound 64, Dragonstorm, First Samurai 64, Ghouls and Ghosts, Golden Nugget, Kirby 64, Mega Man 64, Mission Impossible 2, Mario Artist Picture Maker, Mario Artist Polygon Maker, Rakuga Kids, Smurf 64, Super Mario. This page opens with a harsh review of the Guillemot Trilogy pack, calling it a peripheral drubbing and rating it 3/10. The reviewer finds the analog stick and D-pad appalling, suggesting it's better to stick with official Nintendo controllers. Then it moves on to preview Mystical Ninja, Goemon 2, Konami's second 64-bit adventure. It promises a return to 2D platforming with co-op, sub-games, and role-playing elements, something to watch out for in 1999. The page also includes a news section, listing upcoming game releases for January, February, and March 1999, as well as Q1 1999. January includes Caesar's Palace, Battle Tanks, Roadsters 99, Fighting Force 64, Magical Tetris Challenge, and WCW Nitro. February brings Shadowgate 64, Quake 2, Airboarding USA, California Speed, NHL Hockey Sim 99, O.DT, Penny Racers, Rat Attack, and Tonic Trouble. March features 4x4 Mud Monsters, All-Star Tennis 99, Gex 3, Deep Cover Gecko, Micro Machines V3, Monaco Grand Prix Racing Simulation 2, Vigilante 8, and Winback. Q1 1999 includes Castlevania 64 and Duke Nukem 0 Hour. Finally, there's a section called 64 Bits, with smaller news items. Snowbow Kids 2 is confirmed, with hopes for improved multiplayer. EA is releasing Golden Nugget 64, offering gambling games at home. Eurocom is working with Disney on a 3D bouncy cutie game, possibly titled 40 Winks. Capcom is also working on Disney and Looney Tunes games. This page features the Total 64 chart attack, showing top N64 games from 2 sources, Excitement Direct and Blockbuster, with Excitement Direct listing their top 10 games, including F1 World Grand Prix, 1080 Snowboarding, Mission Impossible, Banjo-Kazooie, IS-98, GoldenEye 007, Mortal Kombat 4, WWF Warzone, NBA Courtside, and Fighter's Destiny. Blockbuster's rentals chart includes F1 World Grand Prix, 1080 Snowboarding, GoldenEye, WWF, Warzone, Mission Impossible, Turok 2, Banjo-Kazooie, IS-98, Super Mario 64, and WCW vs. NWO World Tour. It also features Total 64's most wanted games, mentioning that Perfect Dark still tops their list. Their top 10 includes Perfect Dark, Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, Jet Force Gemini, Shadowman, Banjo-Tooie, South Park 64, Castlevania 64, Winback, Bloodshot, and Conker 64. The 64-bits section touches on Mario Party, and the price wars between 64 and Sony, and Kemco are working on new games. The next page is a full-page advertisement for Starshot Space Circus Fever on Nintendo 64, promising an out-of-this-world experience with the tagline, "Nothing on Earth will prepare you." This page is an article previewing Rayman 2, The Great Escape for the Nintendo 64. It highlights the game's transition to 3D and improvements over the original, including a more intuitive and humorous gameplay experience. The article mentions the game's positive reception at E3 and ECTS, and the storyline involves Rayman rescuing his friends from robot pirates. The text also mentions Rayman's new abilities and the odd enemies he'll face, such as two-footed missiles and zombie chickens. Screenshots show Rayman in action, showcasing the game's environments and character design. The next page is a full-page advert for Starshot Space Circus Fever on the Nintendo 64. It proclaims that the universe has a new hero, and this one juggles. The ad features the main character, Starshot, standing on a planetoid with a vehicle, set against a backdrop of space. It describes Starshot as aspiring to be as big as Super Mario, saving Space Circus from Virtua Circus, and encountering weird extraterrestrial characters. The game is touted as having 3D graphics and being the best in the universe. Get deeper. This page dives into Duke Nukem 0 Hour for the Nintendo 64. It positions Duke Nukem as the Lara Croft before Lara Croft, comparing his impact to that of other gaming icons. The article highlights the game's shift to a third-person perspective, similar to Tomb Raider, and suggests it improves upon the PlayStation version. It mentions the original Duke Nukem 3D and the N64 port, noting some cuts made to the PC version. A screenshot shows in-game graphics, and a humorous caption jokes about futuristic hairdryers and Duke's potential for a bouffant. It also lists the game's publisher as GT Interactive, developer as Euro.com, expected release date as March 99, and the format as cartridge. The next page features Duke Nukem 0 Hour for the Nintendo 64. It emphasizes that the game is an original title, not just a rehash of the PlayStation version, and compares the gameplay to Tomb Raider, crossed with Turok 2 with Duke's unique flair. The reviewer enjoyed their trip to Euro.com after getting up at 5:30 AM, and said the game was running in highs with the 4 MB expansion pack. The first level is set in a city, and roaming the streets are a selection of nasty alien types hell-bent on making a rather pretty trophy out of Duke's head. The page also showcases different time zones and character variations Duke will be in, including modern-day Duke, Victorian Duke, Cowboy Duke, and a scene inside an alien ship with Duke ready to redecorate with blood-red paint. A joke is made that Duke isn't known for his silver-fingered abilities, but Duke can give the ivories a serious tinkling if the situation arises. This page continues the coverage of Duke Nukem 0 Hour, comparing it to a blend of Tomb Raider and Turok 2, with Duke's distinctive style. The reviewer highlights the game's weapon selection and the Turok 2-style sniper rifle. There's also mention of a plasma rifle that freezes enemies, revealing their skeletons. The article touches on the time travel element, featuring post-apocalyptic, Western, Victorian, and medieval Duke variations. The level design is described as atmospheric, with enemies and weapons suited to each time period. A screenshot shows what is described as a Victorian London is suffering a serious pink-eye epidemic, with a zombie and a scene of the Total 64 staff stumbling through Rapid's doors at 9:45 in the morning, commenting on deadline day. There is also a shot of the Western Duke, with some gambling tables, and an alien dog holding a pistol, which is said to be from LAPD. This page delves into the audio and graphics of Duke Nukem 0 Hour, as well as comparing it to titles like GoldenEye and Turok 2. The soundtrack receives praise for its hard-rocking music, a departure from the norm, with heavy guitar riffs and wah-wah pedals. The reviewer also highlights the expanded soundbite selection, with classic Duke phrases. The graphics are noted for their humor and references to South Park, V, and The Simpsons. Movie posters within the game world get a shout-out, with examples given, from Duke Nukem stars in Bollock Alien Hunter, to Duke Nukem is the Golden Guy. The reviewer anticipates a possible Nintendo censorship due to the Club Mario, potentially diluting the game's essence. The 4-player deathmatch mode is highlighted, running smoothly and offering competition to GoldenEye and Turok 2. The Dukes of Hazzard section features Duke Nukem in other titles, such as Duke Nukem 64, A Time to Kill and Total Meltdown, commenting on what the Duke's previous 3D adventures looked like. Duke Nukem 64, a conversion from Duke Nukem 3D, is credited with giving character to the basis of today's first-person shooters, while A Time to Kill and Total Meltdown are noted for their unique camera perspective. The next page is a full-page advert for the Nintendo 64 game, Wipeout 64, by Psygnosis and Midway. It highlights the game's futuristic racing and high-speed action, along with its compatibility with the N64 Rumble Pack and Controller Pack. The page also features screenshots of the game in action. The tagline is, "We race, we die, there is Midway." This page is a full-page advert for Wipeout 64 by Psygnosis and Midway, boasting the futuristic racing and tunes from Fluke and Propellerheads. With the tagline "No beauty anymore," it's selling that edgy, high-speed thrill. The next page features a preview of Micro Machines 64. Codemasters are bringing this top-down racing game to the N64. The reviewer believes that it's so playable, it puts Tetris to shame. It highlights the game's fast-paced action, lack of graphical glitches, and the feeling of racing around miniature environments. The graphics are improved over the PlayStation version. Obstacles like discarded cigarettes and milk droplets become major hazards. There's plenty of cars and tracks to choose from, ensuring a long lifespan. The lowdown section mentions the publisher and developer, both Codemasters, and the expected release date of November, with the game being a cartridge format. There's a little snippet saying, "This car could not help but feel a strange attraction just before its untimely and explosive demise," referencing the explosive gameplay. This page features a preview of Micro Machines 64. Thesis. The reviewer highlights the game's playability and insanity, where everyday objects become huge obstacles. The graphics are improved over the PlayStation version. There is a sentence that states, "Everyday objects are suddenly huge obstacles. A discarded cigarette can cause your car to blow up, while a droplet of milk on the table can cause serious skidding." The preview also mentions the 4-player mode, and compares the game favorably to other N64 multiplayer titles like Turok 2, GoldenEye, and WCW vs NWO Revenge. Screenshots show the top-down racing action on various tracks like a beach with sandcastles, a snooker table, a school science lab, and a breakfast table, demonstrating the environmental variety. This page delves into the Legend of Zelda franchise. It starts with quotes from Shigeru Miyamoto about creating a world of dreams, fright, and great joy. The article reflects on the game's impact, highlighting Link's evolution from a simple idea to a household name with his own TV series, Joy. It also mentions the delay of Ocarina of Time for European gamers, and mentions how they will be reviewing it properly before the next issue. Rather than just a preview, they want to provide a guide to the Zelda universe, Musicarinos. The page then takes a trip down memory lane, starting with the original Legend of Zelda on the NES, before moving on to Adventures of Link, and A Link to the Past on the SNES. There are screenshots from each of these games to showcase the progression of the series. This page continues the Legend of Zelda feature, titled Hyrule, the Golden Land. It summarizes the backstory of the Triforce, and its importance, explaining its origins, and how Ganondorf turned the Golden Land into the Dark Land. The page also notes Link's role in returning the Triforce to Hyrule. There are screenshots from various Zelda games, including Link's Awakening on the Game Boy, which they consider superior to the SNES version, and Ocarina of Time, which will see Link thrust into the world of 3D for the first time. The text describes Ocarina of Time as Shigeru Miyamoto's most ambitious project centered around the kidnapping and rescue of Princess Zelda, calling it one of the biggest, best, and most important games in history. The next page is a look at the main characters of The Legend of Zelda. It is titled, Characters of the Triforce. It highlights Zelda, Ganon, and Link, with short descriptions of their roles and motivations in the games. Zelda is described as the wise princess prone to being kidnapped, Ganon as the power-hungry, shape-shifting villain, and Link as the courageous hero destined to save Hyrule. There are accompanying screenshots from various Zelda games, offering a visual representation of the characters. The next page dives into the bestiary of Hyrule, highlighting some of the iconic monsters Link has to battle. It features descriptions of Stalfos, the skeleton warriors, and Armos Knights, the armored stone enemies. Screenshots from various Zelda games, including Zelda 64, showcase these creatures in action, along with a few other species like maniating plants and an ugly troll known as a Goma, which are also apparently making an appearance. This page features a look at the Legend of Zelda cartoon series and other Zelda media, with the title, Link Hits the Small Screen. It mentions the cartoon aired on Saturday mornings and includes shots from the series and a picture of a collector's role-playing book. The page then moves on to the music of Hyrule, discussing the importance of music in Zelda games, citing the flute in Zelda 3 and the ocarina in Ocarina of Time, which has power over time. It gives the button combination for playing Zelda's Lullaby, left C, up C, right C, left C, up C, right C. Finally, there's a section called Fairy, quite contrary, which focuses on the role of fairies in Link's adventures, particularly Navi, Link's fairy companion who warns him of danger. Screenshots are included and shows an art image of a character who appears to be called Darunia. This page dives into the control scheme of The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time for the N64. It describes the function of each button, including the start button for menus, B for sword attacks, top C for Navi information and view changes, L for a transparent map, Z for locking onto enemies, the analog stick for movement, A for context-sensitive actions, R for using the shield, and the bottom left and right C buttons for item usage. The next page is a critical mass review section that covers multiple N64 games. It features screenshots and short reviews for games like Turok 2, which promises prehistoric shenanigans, Body Harvest, a long-awaited title, and Wipeout 64, a supercharged racer. Also mentioned are Silicon Valley, Vrally, Starshot, SEZ.ARS, and NHL99. Finally, the page has a reviews breakdown and info box Brieleka. This page is all about the Total 64 scoring system. Games scoring 90,100 are essential for your collection, while those scoring 019 are friend-threatening catastrophes that you should get rid of immediately. Top games get the Top Banana Award, and the real stinkers get the Slip-Up Award. The Green Berets crew, consisting of Simon 6 Months Phillips, John Sheepdip Austin, Graham I'm Outta Here, Dalzell, led by you Nuts Barris, Nick Retro Cox and Paul Ronald McDonald Stocks, chime in with their favourite games, including Turok 2, Body Harvest, Wipeout 64, F1 World Grand Prix, GoldenEye, IS Saninti 8, Jet Set Willy, Daley Thompson's and Banjo-Kazooie. The verdict box has been revamped, ditching percentages for single numbers, and first impressions gives the initial thoughts on the game. The reviews roundup section promises a bite-sized chunk of information to help you make informed purchasing decisions. Diddy Kong Racing scored a 95 out of 100 and is described as the game that Mario Kart should have been. The next page dives into Turok 2, Seeds of Evil, questioning if it can reclaim the first-person shooter throne after GoldenEye's dominance pushed the original Turok somewhat aside. The Control Freak section details the N64 controller layout for the game, with explanations for the analog stick, A, B, C, Z, Start, D, PAD, and shoulder buttons functions. The page also includes some snazzy renders of Turok and a dinosaur, along with a massive gun. This page is a review of Turok 2, Seeds of Evil, which the reviewer considers a technical masterpiece. They praise Acclaim for matching Rare's ability to maximize the N64 hardware, blending elements of Turok and GoldenEye to create a huge and varied world. The review highlights the graphics as the best on the N64, comparing them favorably to a high-end PC. There are mentions of the storyline involving the Primogen and energy totems, and comments on the sound design. Finally, there's a section showcasing some of the challenging end-level bosses. The next page continues the review of Turok 2, Seeds of Evil, elaborating on the game's gore and level design. The reviewer jokes about boring a dinosaur with the cerebral bore. Lips comment section features a cartoon of the reviewer who says the game is visually and orally exceptional for the N64, and that they wish there were more dinosaurs to kill. The Clean Up That Mess section details particularly brutal deaths. The game is praised for its gore and intense deaths, and the level design is mentioned. This page features the conclusion of the Turok 2, Seeds of Evil review. The reviewer praises the game's weapons, multiplayer, and overall experience. They highlight the humor and unique effects of the weapons. The multiplayer is described as fantastic, although not quite reaching the heights of GoldenEye due to limitations in the field of vision and level design. The review concludes with a verdict box, giving the game scores of 9 for graphics and sound, 8 for playability, 9 for lastability, and an overall score of 96, deeming it a masterpiece you must own. The next page is a preview of Body Harvest for the Nintendo 64. The reviewer seems hesitant, mentioning the game's long development and expressing concerns after the disappointment of Mission Impossible. It was developed by DMA Design, the same studio that would later create the Grand Theft Auto series. The game type is labeled as C Review. This page is a review of Body Harvest for the Nintendo 64, and it appears the reviewer is pleasantly surprised. They describe the game as an update to the arcade classic Defender, mixed with elements from Zelda, Jet Force Gemini, and Blast Corps. The reviewer jokes that the game mechanics include racing around the countryside and running over innocent people. The controls are described as intuitive. The control layout for the Nintendo 64 controller is shown, along with a humorous caption about aliens inviting you round for jelly, while Adam has a bit of an appetite on him. The next page continues the Body Harvest review. The reviewer, Lips, initially wasn't impressed by the graphics, comparing them to a shoddy first-generation Nintendo game, but they admit looks can be deceiving. Gameplay is the strongest point, putting other N64 games to shame. The puzzles are easy to start but become very difficult later in the game. Adam travels not only through time zones in Body Harvest, but from place to place too. The review includes screenshots of Adam in Greece, an American city, and Siberia. The page finishes by declaring that Body Harvest is the best game to hit the N64 since GoldenEye, and in the long run it may be as well regarded as the rare masterpiece, which is high praise indeed. This page features the conclusion of the Body Harvest review, offering a final verdict on the game. The reviewer praises the handling of vehicles commandeered by Adam and notes the variety of mutant insect aliens. There are screenshots of some of the enemies you will face, and overall the game scores highly with a 96% rating. Graphics receive a 7/10, sound a 9/10, playability a 9/10, and lastability a 9/10. In conclusion, Body Harvest is marked as an absolute must-have on the N64. This page is a review of Wipeout 64. The reviewer says, "Mine, Rocket, Electro Bolt," and suggests Nintendo owners have been waiting to hear those words. It includes info such as the publisher is Midway, the developer is Psygnosis, it supports 14 players, it is a futuristic racer, and its version is PAL. You can save the game via memory card, there is no rumble pack, and the cartridge size is 128 MB. There is an image of a pilot in a futuristic craft. 2. This page is a glowing review of Wipeout 64, which the reviewer believes Nintendo owners have been eagerly awaiting. The reviewer is impressed with the game's speed and fluidity, and mentions new modes, weapons, and courses. They describe the courses as having unique looks and lighting effects, and refer to Wipeout 64 as Wipeout 3. The page also features a diagram of the Nintendo 64 controller, explaining the functions of each button in the game, such as steering, acceleration, firing weapons, using air brakes, and changing the view. They are clearly excited that after waiting a long time, there is something to shout about. Nokuri. The next page reviews Wipeout 64, and the reviewer, Lips, believes the game improves significantly upon previous versions. They praise the speed, graphics, and sound, even suggesting that players who don't buy it may need psychiatric help. The review mentions minor cutbacks to weapon icons and effects, especially in multiplayer. Despite this, Wipeout 64 surpasses F-Zero X and Extreme Egg 2 in gameplay and speed. The review highlights the emphasis on destroying ships, and introduces the weapons, which have been tweaked. Old favorites like the Quake Disruptor and Electro Bolts return, along with new additions such as a force field generator and an energy-draining weapon. This page dives into a review of Wipeout 64, calling it the best version. All the original vehicles are present in full 64-bit glory. The championship modes are more complex than before with race, time trial, and weapon modes. It praises the graphics, fluidity, and pantsoiling speed of the game. The review also touches on the music. Verdict scores give graphics a 9, sound an 8, playability and lastability both a 9, and overall a massive 95. The next page presents a review of Silicon Valley, a self-proclaimed not conventional banjo-style platformer. It mentions tasks like chasing sheep and getting an elephant out of a tree, questioning whether the game is a groundbreaking title or a must-have. It lists the game information such as publisher Take-Two, developer DMA Design, 1 player, exploration puzzle platformer type, PAL version, save game via battery backup, no rumble pack and 96 MB cartridge size. Seichen Gander. The image also features a cartoon character with a yellow shirt and a robot. The next page dives into a review of Silicon Valley, a game that apparently takes ages to complete. The reviewer jokingly mentions that you'll probably be bald before you finish the first few levels, and there are 50 levels in all. The plot involves robots gone mad, space stations, and a woman with a Hitler-esque mustache, which sounds interesting. You control Roger the dog, and use his abilities to carry out tasks. The review features screenshots of the game, and a breakdown of the controller functions, even explaining how to control a sheep, microchip, bear, monkey and elephant. The reviewer seems to imply that the game is somewhat like a Banjo-Kazooie style, but he also questions whether or not it will become a groundbreaking title or a must-have. This page continues the Silicon Valley review, with Lip's comment stating the game initially confuses, but then becomes quite engrossing, calling it silly, and recommending it as a Christmas treat alongside Dummer's Body Harvest. The review describes Silicon Valley as a platforming puzzler with exploration, mastering 40 different animal types. There is a dogfighting bonus level. The reviewer notes the game's dark humor, comparing it to South Park. The page includes screenshots of gameplay and an image of a turtle tank character. The animal nitrate section shows off some of the transformations in the game. Hill. This page continues the Silicon Valley review, mentioning the music being terrible but dynamic, and sound effects being humorous, like Banjo-Kazooie. The reviewer notes, the game is simple to play, but hard to beat. The King Rat Fart section highlights the game's unique personality, such as the rat's fart skill to persuade smaller rats. Screenshots depict gameplay and polar bears seemingly in a Coca-Cola advert. The reviewer praises DMA for originality, giving the game high scores for playability and lastability, but lower scores for graphics and sound. Wiser. The next page is a review of Rally for the Nintendo 64, pondering if it can contend for the N64 Racing Crown. Developed by Eden Studios and published by Infogrames, it supports 12 players, uses memory card saves, and doesn't support the Rumble Pack. The cartridge size is 128 MB, and the game is a rally sim. This page is the Rally review, suggesting it's not grey and doesn't resemble a turd unlike the Nintendo 64, but is surely the PlayStation version. The reviewer talks about the search for a good N64 driving game, mentioning Mario Kart, F-Zero X, and Wipeout 64, explaining the difference between a racing game and a driving game. They mention Top Gear Rally and GT64, lamenting the PlayStation owning friends with Toka, Colin McRae, and Gran Turismo. Infogrames decided to release an updated version of the PlayStation Classic, and the reviewer says it's obvious that the game has been given a full 64-bit overhaul. You can race an arcade race, take part in a rally championship, or improve your lap times with the time trial option, which gets mightily addictive. There's a Control Freak section showing the N64 controller layout. Finally, there's a screenshot of the game with the caption, "Damn! I seem to have crashed my car right next to a field of sheep. Right, where are my Velcro gloves? In the boot." The next page continues the Rally review, stating it may not be as good as V1 World Grand Prix, but it's still a fantastic racing game to add to your collection. Hitting grass sends you crashing A-Team style, according to the reviewer. The reviewer also notes improvements over the PlayStation version, but states that while the car sounds are realistic, they are not the most beautiful sound in real life anyway. The heavy metal soundtrack of the PlayStation version was removed. They talk about beginners, cheats and wusses, explaining that Rally is a completely different game to Infogrames' other offerings, based around rally driving. There are screenshots from different locations: Corsica, Safari, Spain and Sweden, with descriptions. Corsica is a standard European tarmac drive through a forest. Safari sees you getting to grips with a muddy floor in the rainy season. In Spain the weather is hot and the roads are not gripping well, and Sweden is the true test for rally masters, like driving on an ice rink. The next page features a review of Rally for the N64. The review comments on how fast the game is, noting pop-up issues. It also jokes that the cars tend to skid, as if they have oil poured over them. However, it still declares it a quality racer that requires patience to master, and recommends it to wheel-based racing fans. The verdict section gives the game an 8 for graphics, stating, "Pretty impressive," and a 6 for sound, with some RRRRMMMM noises. Playability scores an 8, with the comment, "Hard to master, but you will get there eventually." Lastability also gets an 8, with plenty of options and really difficult later on. Overall, it receives a 90, and is called a serious contender for the best driving game on the N64. The page also shows off 4 of the game's cars. Renault Megane holds the road extremely well at speed, Seat Ibiza is the best for beginners, Subaru is very tail-happy and the Escort is boring, steer well clear. This page showcases the game Starshot for the N64. The info box highlights that Infogrames is the publisher, and the developer is in-house. It is a single-player platform game, requiring a memory card to save game progress, and does not support the Rumble Pack. The cartridge size is 128K, and the version is PAL Dale. The description states, Space the Final Frontier, where an intergalactic hero is nothing more than a mischievous juggler, and the villains raid the universe in a giant, stripy tent. Starshot is the name, and Starshot is the game. This page reviews Starshot for the N64, declaring it visually impressive but somewhat awkward to control. It positions Starshot as a platform adventure in the wake of Nintendo's success, with Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie and Gex. The review highlights the game's non-linear structure and the variety of characters and environments encountered, from circus members to beach-dwelling natives. A Control Freak section provides a breakdown of the N64 controller functions within the game, including the analog stick, A, B, C, Z, start and shoulder buttons, noting that the D-pad is not very responsive. The next page reviews Starshot, a game that's been eagerly awaited but, according to the reviewer, doesn't quite reach the heights of Banjo-Kazooie. It's still considered a great game, especially if you're looking for something to fill the time before 12 Tales arrives. The review praises the game's graphics and humorous challenges, but notes the difficulty ramps up quickly, and the controls can be a bit tricky. It's described as a game for hardened platform veterans. The graphics are described as astounding, with water effects that rival those in Banjo, leading to beautifully defined environments. Screenshots show Starshot in various situations, stranded and worried about sharks, navigating a checkpoint, and facing a boulder, where the advice is to run up a wall. One image even highlights the realistic after-explosion smoke. The review emphasizes the constant presence of characters and adversaries. A section called, What a Carry-On, likens a scene to a classic carry-on film, involving a heroic juggler in a tent. This page is a review for the game Starshot, highlighting its unique 3D engine, allowing many characters and polygons to be displayed simultaneously. The reviewer notes the game's graphics are gorgeous, with colorful characters and smooth animation, giving it a 9 out of 10. The sound is considered brilliant, with atmospheric tunes and weird sound effects, scoring an 8. Playability is tricky initially, but becomes rewarding, also scoring an 8. Lastability is rated an 8, noting it's not the biggest game but good for a while. The overall verdict gives it an 86, calling it not the greatest platform adventure, but still a good one. Screenshots include a policewoman sporting a blue swimsuit, and the use of black bombs throughout levels. This page is a preview of SCARS, a racing game from Ubisoft developed by Vivid Images for 14 players. The reviewer questions what sets this game apart from the many others on the market, pondering if it's animal magnetism or just a dirty beast, with a cartridge size of 128 MB. The next page features a review of SCARS, acknowledging the influx of N64 racing games. The reviewer notes the game's unique animalistic vehicles, and its acronym, Supercomputer Animal Racing Simulators. They point out the diverse vehicle designs, from sharks to woolly mammoths, and the influence of graffiti art in the game's aesthetic. The review highlights the game's control scheme, with the N64 controller, including the analog stick for steering, a button for acceleration, B for brakes, the C buttons for camera and weapons, Z to shoot, start to pause, D-pad to ignore, and R for jump. There is mention of an overwhelming amount of on-screen statistics. This page reviews S.C.A.R.S, the N64 racer, where the cars are based on animals. The reviewer appreciates the graphics, texture detail which is a recognized N64 shortcoming, and competent music. They compare it to an adult version of Mario Kart, noting the multiplayer mode as a highlight. The reviewer notes the cars are graded in speed, acceleration, armor, and weapon handling. They prefer vehicles that suit their driving style or look cool. Unlike F1 Grand Prix, the game is more arcade than simulation. There is mention of post-apocalyptic backdrops, industrial dissipation, and primitive Earth tracks. The tracks are multi-route with graphical detail and well-defined scenery. The game has various race modes like time trial and championship. The next page features a racing game review called S.C.ARS. It's a combat racer where the vehicles are based on animals, with the screenshot featuring the shark vehicle competing in the Carbon Cup. The review praises the well-textured and detailed graphics, despite some visible redraw, and the competent music. The multiplayer mode is a highlight, with each vehicle having unique strengths and weaknesses in speed, acceleration, armor, and weapons. Overall, the game is compared to Mario Kart and Wipeout 64, but is still recommended as an entertaining racing experience, receiving a score of 88 out of 100. An NHL99 review praises the game's authenticity and features, comparing it to previous hockey games on computers and consoles. The reviewer notes, good graphics and gameplay but limited music. The review highlights the game's inclusion of real players and tournaments, and the detailed control scheme, which includes functions for shooting, tackling and face-offs. While potentially appealing only to a dedicated N64 audience and hockey fans, the game is considered a solid sports simulation. The next page features first impressions of NHL99. The reviewer thinks it's like any other ice hockey game, but the puck is hard to see, and control is limited, with frequent player falls. Despite this, it seems fun. The page then dives into the specifics of NHL99, highlighting features like penalty shootouts, international and domestic teams, and realistic skater movements. Although scoring can be tricky initially, perseverance pays off. A key issue is the puck's visibility, addressed by a camera that follows it. Beyond regular gameplay, there are fights, triggered by heated player interactions, which result in penalties. Overall, the game's considered superior, appealing to hockey fans for its authenticity, stats, and 4-player mode. It's described as a good game, if you like ice hockey, with exhibition matches, full seasons, and playoffs on offer. Finally, there's an image showing how players show elation on the ice, and a joke about a hockey stick. The verdict gives the game: graphics, 8. Sound, 6. Playability, 7. Lastability, 6. Overall, 79. This page is a competition from Total 64, in association with Take-Two Games, giving away artwork from the game Silicon Valley, and a copy of the game itself. To win, you need to write a funny poem that includes a sheep, a chip, and something to do with Christmas. Send your entries to Woolly Pullover Competition. The next page is a full-page advert for Excitement Direct, a Nintendo specialist. They offer fast delivery and free postage in the UK. They're also giving away free t-shirts or Game Boy Pocket calculators if you order 9 or more items. Jettate. This page offers a vast selection of Nintendo 64 games, accessories and consoles, both new and second-hand. They boast a swap service for second-hand games from £1, and guarantee all second-hand games for 3 months, plus £1 off every game or accessory when bought at the same time. Games listed include titles such as GoldenEye, Mario, International Superstar Soccer, F-Zero X, Turok 2, Banjo-Kazooie, and Zelda. For accessories, there are rumbles packs for the N64 controller, steering wheels like the Mad Catz and VRF1 arcade wheel, memory cards and various cables, various guides, carry cases, cleaning kits, controllers in different colors, and a Game Boy booster is included. The next page kicks off with Total Recall, a roundup of N64 games. The intro warns that not all games are winners, and that scores are adjusted to reflect rising standards. There's a handy guide to icons explaining save methods, cart size, rumble pack support, and player numbers. First up is 1080-degree Snowboarding, an 85% rated game by Nintendo, praised as a well-made snowboarding title with limited replay value, features battery save, 128 MB its and rumble support. Next we have Airborder 64, a 78% rated game published by Human. The reviewer notes that it is an ordinary snowboarding game set in the future. All-Star Baseball 99, an 87% rated game from Acclaim, impressive graphics and realistic commentary. Banjo-Kazooie scores a whopping 96%. Nintendo and Rare's platformer is described as possibly the best on any console. BioFreaks gets an 84%, a beat-em-up with amazing graphics, it's gory fun. Finally, Blast Corps receives an 89%, a unique puzzle game where you demolish buildings to prevent nuclear holocaust. This page continues Total Recall, reviewing more 64 games. First, Bomberman 64 from Nintendo gets a 60%, with the reviewer feeling it doesn't do the character justice and the multiplayer is cluttered. Buster Move 2 from Acclaim also scores 60%, deemed a rip-off unless it's dirt cheap. Buck Bumble UK scores a 91%, an excellent shoot-'em-up, and that heavenly gameplay is marred only by hellish fog. Dark Rift from Vic Tokai gets 69%, deemed inoffensive, competent, and a button masher's paradise. Desaimon 3D, Jap, receives a 40%, recommended only for those fluent in Japanese. Diddy Kong Racing from Nintendo gets a 95%, called what Mario Kart should have been, but perhaps a little too cute. Doom 64 from GT. I get a 79%, with the reviewer saying it still doesn't compare to GoldenEye. Duke Nukem 64 from GT. I scores 85%, praised for humor, attitude and level design. Finally, Extreme G from Acclaim, earns 87%, described as wipeout on bikes. Fun, but frustrating. Extreme Egg 2 from Acclaim, scores 96%, a superb sequel with lots of options. This page continues the roundup reviews, starting with F1 World Grand Prix US from Videosystem, scoring 92% and praised as a must-buy for F1 fans due to its realistic graphics and wealth of options. Next, F-Zero X from Nintendo gets 92% and is lauded for its pure, adrenaline-fueled racing. FIFA RTTWC 98 from EA gets a 78%, but it's considered a poor footy game, best avoided. Fighters Destiny from Ocean scores 88%, noted as a novelty fighting game that doesn't copy Tekken. Forsaken from Acclaim gets a 90%, praised for its 3D shooting and multiplayer. Jex 64 from GT Interactive scores 84%, considered fun but not up to Banjo-Kazooie's level. GoldenEye 007 from Nintendo receives a 98% and is called the best game on the N64. Glover from Nintendo gets 89% and it's described as a very innovative platformer. GT64 Championship Edition from Infogrames earns a 79%. It's like a Gran Turismo for the N64, but not as good as the PlayStation's version. Iggy's Wrecking Balls from Acclaim scores 82%, considered a bit schizophrenic but interesting. Finally, ISS64 from Konami gets 92%, while IS-98 also from Konami scores 95%, hailed as the best footy game. This page presents another batch of game reviews. Killer Instinct Gold gets a 49%, deemed dated and overly complex. Lylat Wars/Star Fox 64 scores a high 94%, celebrated for its graphics and multiplayer. Mace, The Dark Age gets 80%, described as a decent arcade conversion. Madden 64 earns an 89%, lacking official licenses but with strong AI. Major League Baseball receives 79%, praised for playability despite graphical shortcomings. Mario Kart 64 scores 93%, considered the most fun racing game on the N64. Mike Piazza's Strike Zone is panned with a 30%, called abysmal. Mission Impossible gets 83%, noted for varied gameplay but inconsistent quality. Mortal Kombat 4 scores 90%, a top fighting game. Multi-Racing Championship receives 80%, noted for graphics and shortcuts. Shoranti Mystical Ninja gets 89%, praised for its humorous adventure elements, whilst NASCAR 99 gets a 59%, described as a boring representation of the sport, and is very much like real-life oval racing. This page presents more N64 game reviews. NBA Courtside scores 81%, praised for atmosphere, but criticized for graphics. NFL Blitz earns 89%, celebrated for arcade-style football and multiplayer fun. NFL Quarterback Club also gets 89%, appealing to fans of American football with highest graphics. Off-Road Challenge is panned at 45%, deemed a poor racing game example. Pilotwings 64 scores a high 95%, lauded for inventive gameplay and amazing graphics. Penny Racers scores 85%, drawing comparison to Mario Kart. Quake scores 85%, retaining the essence of the PC classic. Quest 64 gets a 69%, disappointing as a first RPG on the N64. Rakuga Kids, Jap, earns 61%, a bizarre beat-em-up that eventually wears off. Shadows of the Empire scores 77%, with flying levels carrying the weight of the game, while Snowboard Kids gets 80%. A cute arcade racer lacking depth, and lastly Star Soldier gets 65%, a retro title lacking a much-needed modern makeover. The next page features a roundup of more N64 games. Super Mario 64 leads with a 96%, hailed as the game that started it all. Tetrisphere earns 84%, described as an addictive and challenging 3D spherical nightmare. Top Gear Rally scores 75%, noted for its speed but criticized for sparse backgrounds. Turok, Dinosaur Hunter receives 86%, recommended despite being overshadowed by GoldenEye. Tsunami scores 86%, considered a fine puzzle game. Virtual Chess 64 gets a lowly 54%, deemed a lame attempt to bring chess to the N64, maybe stick to a chessboard. Wave Race 64 earns 89%, praised for realistic water racing. Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey scores 82%, similar to other ice hockey games but still better than the sequel. WCW vs. N-Nuo scores 90%, described as an excellent fighting game. WCW vs. N-Nuo Revenge earns 94%, considered the best fighting game on the N64. Wetrix gets 90%, lauded as an original and addictive puzzle game. World Cup 98 scores 90%, deemed a much better footy title than FIFA, maybe give it a look. This page features a roundup of more N64 games. WWF Warzone scores 87%, hailed as a superb wrestling game, essential for wrestling fans. Yoshi's Story earns 84%, described as a disappointment, too easy for mature gamers. The rest of the page has a long list of quick reviews, including 64 Uzumo, Aerogauge, Aerofighters Assault, Art of Fighting Twin, Automobili Lamborghini Chameleon Twist, Cruisin' USA, Doraemon, Dual Heroes, Dynamite Soccer, Famistar 64, FIFA 64, Human Grand Prix, G-League Striker, Jeopardy, GQ World Soccer 3, King of Pro Baseball, MK Trilogy, MK Mythologies, NBA Hangtime, Power League 64, Rampage World Tour, Robotron 64, San Francisco Rush, St. Andrews Golf, Tamagotchi World, Tucon Road, Us Masters, Wayne Gretzky's 3D Hockey 98, Wild Choppers and Wonder Project J2. The next page is an advert for officially licensed Nintendo 64 keychains. They feature N64 controller keychains in various colors, some with LCD clocks, and even a voice memo record and playback version. Prices range from £2.99 to £6.99. The tagline says, available from all leading game stores. This page is a walkthrough for the N64 game Gex 64. Enter the Gecko. The guide, titled The Good Gex Guide Part 2, helps players navigate the level Circuit Central, Honey, I Shrunk the Gecko. It details how to traverse rooms using ceiling tiles, avoid enemy droids and purple projectiles, and climb the I.O. Tower. It explains how to find hidden areas, collect remotes, and gather power-ups. The next page provides a walkthrough for Prehistory Channels. This old cave, in Gex 64. Enter the Gecko. It offers tips on avoiding lava, dodging steam vents, and bouncing on flowers. It details how to find the hidden silver remote and hidden goodies, including a blue icefly power-up and a green healthfly TV. The guide also mentions being wary of Gex's prehistoric ancestors and their spiky tails. The next page continues with a walkthrough for Gex 64's Rhizopolis, no weddings and a funeral level. It warns about TV static surfaces and floating flathead baddies. The guide explains how to navigate the level by manipulating floating speakers. It details how to find the hidden silver remote in the TV remote room and extra life goodies. The walkthrough includes tips on crossing static-filled chambers and using conveyor belts. This page continues the walkthrough, now focusing on the Kung Fu Theater, Samurai Night Fever, level in Gex 64. It offers tips for navigating the Great Spinner, riding the swinging platforms, and climbing the towering temple to collect the remotes. The guide provides specific instructions on timing jumps, dodging obstacles, and finding hidden goodies. It also warns about enemies like the Red Ninja and Flameheads. Roitspin. The next page is a guide for the Rocket Channel, Pain in the Asteroids, level from Gex 64. It details how to find air pockets, navigate the asteroid level, ride the warp tube, destroy 5 crystal power cells, and find hidden goodies and a silver remote. It gives specific instructions on how to time jumps and use platforms to reach different areas in the level. This page is a walkthrough for 2 boss TV levels in Gex 64, Gilligex Isle and Mushu Pork. For Gilligex Isle, it explains how to dodge orbs and tail whip the blue ones back at the Gilligex brothers, advising where to stand to accurately return their shots. Successfully completing this level nets you a gold remote and opens the silver gates. For Mushu Pork, the guide details how to deal with Mushu, a half-pig/half-cow boss who throws a switch to electrify the walkways. The strategy involves standing on the grates, jumping the electricity later on, and eventually tail-whipping Mushu to electrocute him. Defeating Mushu gives you access beyond the red gates. This page continues the walkthrough for Gex 64, focusing on the Gexzilla vs Mechares and Res boss battles. Vunten Norcus. The Gexzilla vs Mechares section advises players to keep circling Mechares, avoid his electrical defenses and sonic rings. The strategy involves tail-whipping blocks onto Mechares and destroying buildings to find health bugs. The channel Z, Defeat Rez in the final battle guide outlines the strategy for the Rez battle. This involves riding the platform, tail-whipping the green health fly TV, and jumping into the green light. The guide provides tips on dodging Rez's attacks, including missiles, arm sweeps, and laser goggles. It also suggests how to enrage Rez into slamming his palm into the green column of light. This page jumps into the bonus levels of Gex 64. First up is Aztec 2-Step, where Gex is dressed as Indiana Jones. It involves collecting items within a time limit, and opening passages by jumping on concentric rings. Succeeding in this level grants an extra life and a golden remote. Next is Thursday the 12th. The objective is to collect 50 skulls in 3 minutes. The guide provides a floor-by-floor walkthrough, listing the direction to take on each floor, such as the ground floor, which is one door in from the left, the first floor, which is far right. It also notes hidden power-ups behind some doors, and the location of the remote behind one of the top row of doors. The next page dives into more Gex 64 levels. In Dragnet, Gex needs to find 50 police badges in 3 minutes. The guide suggests a systematic approach, starting with clearing the ground and using death slides strategically. Next up is The Spy Who Loved Himself, where Gex has to collect 35 briefcases in 3 minutes. The strategy involves tail-whipping computer banks, navigating conveyor belts, avoiding lasers and patrolling sharks. Finally, there's Lizard in a China Shop, where the mission is to find 31 Chinese takeaway cartons in 3 minutes. It advises using power jumps, being cautious of water, and mastering the spinning plates by jumping constantly. This page is all about Gex 64 levels. Bugged Out requires collecting 70 radiation symbols by tail-whipping bugs, ambushing them at TVS, and waiting for the gold remote to appear. Chips and Dips involves gathering 50 batteries in 3 minutes, using power jumps, wall sucking, and precision jumps to climb the tower, and activating platforms for the gold remote. The next page is a full-page advert for Games Arena, boasting the best games at the lowest prices. FIFA 99 is the game of the month at £42.99. Several games are pictured, including NBA Jam 89, Turok, South Park, Madden 99, and Wipeout 64. It also includes an order form and a phone number for the Games Arena hotline. This page is the Fresh Bananas cheat section. Cheats are included for NHL 99 and GT64. The GT64 cheat involves going into the options menu and selecting Backup Delete multiple times to unlock mirrored tracks. A cheeky monkey mascot is also featured, giving off the impression of being mischievous. The next page features cheats for Mission Impossible on the Nintendo 64. These cheats are specifically for the PAL version of the game, correcting an issue from a previous magazine release. The codes unlock things like extra weapons, unlimited ammo and health, and silly modes that change the character's appearance. The page also contains an advertisement for Diamond Games, a mail-order retailer. They sell a variety of PlayStation and Nintendo 64 games, including popular titles like Gran Turismo, Tekken 3, GoldenEye 007, and Diddy Kong Racing. A bargain basement section is listed for PlayStation games. Kayo. This page dives into the world of NFL Blitz for the N64, offering a rundown of hidden player unlocks and cheat codes. First, there's a list of hidden players that can be unlocked by entering specific names and PIN numbers in the Enter Name for Record Keeping section. Entering these triggers the phrase, "Lights out, baby," confirming the code. The players include Brain, Dan Thompson, Dan Forden, Jim Gentile, Jeff Johnson, Jason Skiles, Jennifer Hedrick, Luis Mangubat, Mike Lynch, Raiden from MK, John Root, Sal DeVita, Shinnok from MK, Skull, and Mark Turmel, each paired with a specific pin. Then, the page details cheat mode activation and lists a bunch of gameplay altering codes. You enable the cheats by pressing turbo, jump, and pass a certain number of times before pressing a direction on the D, PAD, or analog stick. These codes do everything from enabling super field goals to power-up blockers and even messing with player appearances, like giving them massive heads or shrinking their bodies. Finally, at the bottom of the page is an advertisement for Tunguska, an emulator support website and retailer. The next page is a cheat code bonanza, starting with NFL 99 for the N64. Enter codes like Big for big players, Brainy for big head mode, Victory to view the ending sequence, and Fast for faster gameplay. There's also a fun tip to press Z during instant replays for alternate goal sounds. Other games get a look in too, with tips for E-Blades and E-Storm teams, and the Zero X Cup cheat, where a code enables every standard of player to complete the mode. The page also provides codes for other N64 titles, including NFL Blitz, with the codes enabling no play selection, no CPU assistance, power-up speed and tournament mode. Plus, there's a code for Invisible and Hyper Blitz. There's also a new and used computer and video games advert for IT Video Games Center at the bottom. They're boasting a massive selection at fantastic prices, with games starting from £5. This page is an advert for Project K, offering Nintendo 64, Sega Saturn, PlayStation and Dreamcast imports. They're slinging cheat codes and promising to unlock your game's hidden secrets with the Datal Action Replay cartridge. For the N64, you could grab an import N64 with SCART, 10-pad and power supply, or Hi-As RAM upgrade, and many USA releases. 10. Saturn fans could import a white Saturn or get a 2" 1 cartridge for import games, including those RAM cart hitters like X-Men vs Street Fighter. PlayStation heads have a selection of Jap and USA releases, including Ridge Racer 4 and Tekken 3. Dreamcast players can find the 128-bit Super Console, available in November 1998, imported from Japan, and can get Virtua Fighter 3, Sonic Adventure, Daytona USA 2, Street Fighter 3, House of Dead 2, and Game Boy Color, Pocket Neo Geo titles. Project K also offers projectors, DVD imports, and NTSC to PAL converters for those wanting to play imported games on PAL TVS. Finally, they've got a selection of game merchandise and anime bits and bobs, and you can email them for a price list. The next page is The Firing Line, which is the letters section of Total 64 magazine. Readers write in with their thoughts and questions, and the Total 64 team responds. One reader from New Zealand praises the magazine and asks about future games like Blastcore 2 and a potential RPG for the Nintendo 64. The editors suggest Holy Magic Century and Ogre Battle 3 as the closest options. Another reader asks about getting Banjo-Kazooie, given their lukewarm feelings toward Mario 64. They also want to know about the Game Jest, and if Pokemon games are sad. The editors respond that if you don't like puzzle platformers, you probably won't enjoy Banjo-Kazooie, adding that the Pokemon characters get lonely at the weekends. The page also features a GameStar LMP ad, offering joypads and a steering wheel to letter writers. This page continues the Firing Line letters section. One reader wants advice on which new game to get, being between Turok 2 and Perfect Dark, also asking if Banjo-Kazooie is worth it, and whether GT Club 64 is worthwhile without a wheel. The Total 64 team suggests Turok 2 and waiting for Perfect Dark, recommending you wait for their Banjo-Kazooie review, and stating that most racing games are worth it even without a steering wheel. Another reader is frustrated that the Banjo-Kazooie cheats they found at the end of the game didn't work. Total 64 explains these areas are only accessible upon purchasing the sequel. Next, a reader asks about the distribution issues with Nintendo, and if 1080 is the best snowboarding game, whether Turok 2 will have the same annoying fog as Turok 1, what is better, Mortal Kombat 4 or BioF.eDay and is Zelda 64 better than Banjo-Kazooie? Total 64 replies with yes, no, MK4, and it will be the best game in the world. Probably. Finally, a reader asks about the N64 Dade's release date, retail cost, expected software titles, its power compared to the Sega Dreamcast, and whether it will sell separately. Total 64 humorously responds, no, 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 gibber, 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 arg, dribble, and wibble. This page features more letters to Total 64. One reader asks about Banjo-Kazooie cheats, the N64 DD coming to England, rumors of an N64 2000, and action/adventure games after Mission Impossible. Total 64 directs the reader to Cheaty Monkey in issue 18, says the same questions are asked all the time, doubts an N64 2000, and recommends Winback and Hybrid Heaven. Another reader asks why PlayStation has a Game Boy player, but Nintendo doesn't. Total 64 humorously suggests Nintendo probably enjoys PlayStation owners playing Game Boy games on their pesky little 32-bit machine. Finally, there is an advert for Madeira Games, who sell us Japanese and Hong Kong N64, PSX, Sega, and DVD games and consoles. They mention titles like Metal Gear Solid, WWF Warzone, GT, Duke 2, Spyro, Point Blank 2, Elemental Gearbolt, Rival Schools, Banjo-Kazooie, Mission Impossible, Gex 64, Desaimon, Iggy's Wrecking Balls and Turok 2. The Pioneer DV 505 DVD player is available for £449. This page showcases reader-submitted artwork under the title Picks Win Prizes, encouraging readers to send in their bestest pictures. The submitted art features drawings of video game characters and original creations by young artists from the UK, USA, and Holland. The grand prize is an official N64 pad, and runner-ups get jolt pucks and keychains. Artwork includes a character with a large gun, cartoon red creature, a drawing of a stage and characters, Momoman, Link from the Legend of Zelda, Mario, a character with a reptile, a character with a banana on his head. The text at the bottom requests that entrants include their name, address and age on the back of their artwork. The next page features the high scores section for 1080 Degrees Snowboarding, GoldenEye 007, and Lilat Wars. For 1080 Degrees Snowboarding, the high scores are listed for Air Make, Crystal Lake, Golden Forest, Dragon Cave, Halfpipe, Crystal Peak, Mountain Village, and Deadly Hall. GoldenEye 007 lists times for dam, facility, runway, surface, bunker, silo, frigate, archives, streets, depot, train, jungle, control, cavern, cradle, Aztec complex, bunker, and Egyptian temple. Lastly, Lilat Wars shows high scores for levels such as Corneria, Zones, Meteo, Area 6, Sector Y, Sector X, Katina, Macbeth, Aquas, Area 6, Fortuna, Sector Z, Bolst Defense, Titania, Solar, Venom. The page ends with Be a winner with total 64, where the winner is Padraic McDonnell, with runners-up Eric Russell, Tom Rattle, Erwin Zavart, and Patrick Laxo. This page shows the high scores section, but this time for Mario Kart 64 and Diddy Kong Racing and Snowboard Kids. For Mario Kart 64, it lists the best times for UK and US racers on various tracks, including Luigi Raceway, Toad's Turnpike, Wario Stadium, DK Jungle Parkway, Moo Moo Farm, Frappe Snowland, Sherbetland, Yoshi Valley, Koopa Troopa Beach, Choco Mountain, Royal Raceway, Banshee Boardwalk, Kalimari Desert, Mario Raceway, Bowser Castle, and Rainbow Road. Diddy Kong Racing features times for Ancient Lake, Walrus Cove, Fossil Canyon, Crescent Island, Hot Top Volcano, Windmill Plains, Jungle Falls, and Dark Moon Caverns. Snowboard Kids shows times for Rookie Mountain, Big Snowman, Sunset Rock, Night Highway, Grass Valley, Dizzyland, Ninjaland, Quicksand Valley, and Silver Mountain. The page ends with a call to action. You know the score. Send us those videos and or photos of your best scores or times to High Scores, Total 64 Magazine, 1 Roman Court, 48 New North Road, Exeter, Devon, X44, EP. We'll make you into a little twinkling gaming star. This page is a subscription advert for Total 64 Magazine, offering 12 copies for the price of 10, with a subscription form for readers to fill out. It includes options for UK and European delivery, as well as a UNEUS phone number. Payment methods accepted are cheque, postal order, Visa, Access, and MasterCard. This page is an advert for back issues of Total 64 magazine. It displays covers from issues 15 through 21, featuring games like Turok, Banjo-Kazooie, Mortal Kombat 4, Wipeout 64, Extreme Egg 2, and Rogue Squadron. The ad includes an order form for readers to purchase the back issues at £4.95 each. The next page previews the next month's issue of Total 64, issue 22. You can expect reviews of Micro Machines and Zelda, Ocarina of Time, with the reviewer wondering what it's really like. There's also Top Gear Overdrive, with the reviewer wondering if it could give Gran Turismo a kicking, and a preview of Superman. Also featured is Knife Edge and 64mation's Carmageddon 64, with an exclusive sneak peek. There will also be a special Body Harvest poster. The features section mentions the forthcoming release of Big Duke's second Nintendo appearance, and an interview with the big man himself. There will be a look back at 1998, and a look forward to the games that will make the new year the best ever for the N64. Finally, a guide to solve all of your rally problems. This page is a full-page advertisement for GameBuster, a compilation of tips, cheats, and solutions for N64 games. Issue 6 features Buck Bumble, Far One World Grand Prix, Starshot, and Gex 64 Orchestra. The next page is the sign-off section of Total 64, with the usual magazine staff details listed. Then the editor signs off, mentioning playing Zelda, Turok 2, Wipeout 64, and Body Harvest over Christmas. Sounds like a great festive gaming session. The tone is cheeky, and anticipating a stonking $19.99 for N64 owners. It ends with a bold statement. See you in the next exciting issue of Total 64, and remember, accept no substitutes. This page is a full-page advert for Special Reserve, offering a variety of Nintendo 64 consoles, games and accessories. They're also throwing in free gifts for new members, plus a cheeky discount if you buy multiple items. It's all about enticing gamers to join their club with the promise of magazines, cheats, and competitions. There is also a section dedicated to Pocket Game Boys and Game Boy games. There is also store locations and payment plans available. Chishins. The next page showcases the Buck Bumble, pesticidal maniac game for the Nintendo 64. The advert features a menacing robotic bee, armed with a pesticide sprayer, magnified under a magnifying glass. It boasts review scores from Total 64 magazine, claiming 92% and 90% ratings. The tagline, "There's a nasty little bug going around," cleverly alludes to the game's theme. The Ubisoft logo and website address are visible at the bottom right. This page is the front cover of a special Extreme Egg XG2 guide. The cover features the game's logo prominently, with two futuristic bikes speeding towards the viewer. It proudly declares itself free, with issue 22 of Total 64, indicating this was a bonus for readers of that particular issue. The tagline at the bottom states, "The Extreme Guide for the Extreme Gamer."